The Washington Capitals versus the Montreal Canadiens. I'm going to pull up odds for these here, but I will let you two take the floor. There's no reason for me to talk right now.
All right, so Mac and I had kind of been like going back and forth, and I had been doing this with a bunch of other Caps fans too. It's like, who would you rather play, Columbus or Montreal? And I think, over the last couple of days, we got to a point where it's like, I don't care, I just want to know. Well, we have our answer. It's the Montreal Canadiens. They locked it up last night with their win over Carolina, correct?
Yes.
So my immediate reaction to this is, yeah, I'm a little bit apprehensive. That Habs team looks pretty good. They look really fast, really skilled. They're playing really, really well right now, and they're coming into the postseason hot. Usually that's a recipe for disaster, especially for the Washington Capitals in the past. But I firmly believe that the Washington Capitals can win this series. Have started to bring myself a little bit back down to earth about it. So yeah, I'm feeling good going into the series. I think the Caps have had a great year. Obviously Ovi doing what he did with his, goal scoring this year was insane for a 39-year-old man that broke his fucking leg and then went on to shatter the NHL goal scoring record. That's pretty insane. Wilson, Protas, Strome, McMichael all set career highs in goals. I think that's incredible. The Washington Capitals had 7 players that hit 20 or more goals this year, and one of them was a defenseman. So those are all great numbers right there. Immediately that makes me feel a little bit better. I am a little bit concerned about Alexi Protas. I would love to hear a concrete update on him coming back soon. That's something I'm really, leaning on. He had the best shooting percentage of any Cap this season, just a tick over 21%. So that's fantastic. And you guys have to remember that that guy also, like Brandon Hagel, doesn't usually see power play time.
Yeah, no, all good points. I think I agree with you. I feel mostly good, but I think the two biggest question marks that need to be addressed in this discussion surrounding the Capitals, one you just mentioned, Alexi Protas, and number two, the goaltending situation. Obviously, Logan Thompson had a great year for us, a big part of our success. Um, hasn't played in a few weeks now, had somewhat of a minor injury. I think it was mostly the kind of thing where he was going to sit the rest of the season as like a precautionary type thing. I do know that he's been a full participant in practice the last few days, so I believe he's ready to go. But that being said, it's kind of like, well, do you start a guy that hasn't played a game in 3+ weeks, or do you go with Lindgren, who's played pretty well the last couple of games and is kind of in rhythm, and maybe start him until he falters and then switch to LT? You also got randomly Clay Stevenson making his NHL debut as we speak against the Penguins, our third string goalie at the moment. So I don't think that's an accident. I think that the Caps management and coaching staff is fully at least thinking, well, we might as well get this guy in a quick NHL game here just in case something happens with injuries down the road here. So he's not playing his first game in the playoffs. I think that's smart. The Protus thing, what I've heard is that he has not resumed skating yet, so that is not a good sign. I From the rumors that I picked up on Twitter, it's that the injury was a cut from a skate. So we're probably dealing with some sort of cut or a laceration. With those type of things, it's normal to not be able to skate at all for a while, and then as soon as it's healed enough, you typically can get back in the swing of things pretty quickly. So I don't think it's one of those things where it's like he hasn't skated because he's got like this bone bruise that he's gonna have to nurse back
Right.
to health. It's a little bit of a unique situation from what
You're
I
you're
understand.
doing that to prevent any form of infection from taking hold, which is then going to make this a billion times worse.
Or reopening or
Yes.
whatever it is. Yeah,
And
exactly. So
everyone knows that hockey equipment is super sanitary and does not smell bad at all. So luckily, there's
right.
no chance of that happening.
Yeah, so I think it was like from the play, it looked like it was on his lower leg,
Yeah.
maybe like the back of his leg or
They
something
said
like
it was like
that.
right around where like the skate tongue is or something like
Yeah,
that.
that makes sense. So, I will say that is a huge, huge piece. The goalie thing, I'm a little less worried about, oddly enough. Like whether it's LT or Chucky in there, I feel mostly fine about that. Um, we are a different team with and without Alexi Protas. So
Yes.
we cannot afford to have him miss like this entire series or something like that. It behooves us that it benefits us that we don't start till Monday. Give him a couple extra days to get ready, but I would really hope that he's ready to go by, at the latest game 2 or 3 or something like that. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Defensively, I do think the Caps have the advantage here. I know that Montreal's got great young mobile defensemen that can jump up and out of the rush. Hudson, oh my God, are you kidding me? Set a rookie record beating out Larry Robinson for assists as a rookie defenseman. I mean,
yeah,
that's
that is
just
pretty impressive.
insane. Caden Gooley, we saw it last night. He has 2 goals, and everyone was saying that's the best game of hockey they've ever seen him play. So
Yeah.
that's pretty scary. Carlson and Chikrin, I would expect those to be the two top dogs for the Caps this season. They carry the most ice time for the Caps. Carlson's a tick over 23 minutes a game. I would expect that to go up to about 25. Chikrin's a tick over 21. I would expect that to also go up to about 24. You're also probably looking for Matt Roy, who's your best shutdown defenseman, to get a big increase in time. And I think Rasmus Sandin as well, just because of the skating ability, probably does that to complement him. Question for you guys. So obviously, young guns are a little bit of an X factor in the series. The Habs have a bunch of them. If you're the Washington Capitals, does Ryan Leonard start game one?
I would say yes. I think at this point he's got a spot in the lineup, and I think you want to at least get him into the first playoff game to see what he does. I know a lot of people are mostly non-Caps fans looking to kind of prey on our downfall are trying to be quick to be like, oh, well, he's only got the one empty net goal, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think every game he's played, he's been one of the better players on the ice. Like I think he for sure passes the eye test. He's super fast, like just controls play. Like I've seen him pick up the puck in our D zone so many times and just with ease, the next thing you know, he's like,
It's a player that can control the puck through the neutral zone. The
yeah,
Caps have been
he's
looking
just
for that for 10 years.
yeah, he
Like,
can get the puck to the offensive like face-off dot in no time with ease, and that's kind of the reason I want him in the lineup is just somebody to be able to kind of break the game open a little bit like that. Um, I also love how much he's been throwing his body around just as a youngster in this league right away. He is not afraid to go after some of the top talents in the league with his checking. So I think that's another reason you want him in for postseason.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think you got to play him. And from what I've seen from Caps games, I'm not as dialed in as you guys, but certainly has passed the eye test. Fast, isn't afraid of throwing the body. Kind of will do whatever it takes to make the play. So I think you need that in the lineup. let's Let me shift this conversation a little bit towards Montreal. So, the youngest team ever in NHL history to make the postseason, an average age of 25 and a half years old, which is pretty wild. So we have that going into this. And as you both know, there's all this hype around Ivan Demidov, the $250,000 jersey sales in a day, the private jet to get him to Canada. He's got fans chanting his name. They've got him in like the Ritz-Carlton with his girlfriend in a fully stocked fridge, like all this stuff. And I just got to think, like, with a guy who's that talented, it's going to be different come postseason. I know that. He's a huge X factor. He's an enormous X factor for Montreal. He could arguably be their best offensive weapon if he finds his rhythm here. So I'm very interested to watch him this series and see how he reacts to a physical North American game, which we know the Caps are going to play. Um, Montreal, strangely physical. I did not expect this. They
Yep.
were seventh in the NHL in hits. And in the Eastern Conference, that's the second most of any Eastern Conference playoff team right now, other than the Senators.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Demidov can do, especially like you said, going into North American Stanley Cup playoffs. That's just a different animal. And he's going up against one of the bigger teams in the NHL right now, and definitely one of the biggest and heaviest in the Eastern Conference in the Washington Capitals. There's some big boys out there that do not mind throwing that weight around, and they're going to be looking for it too. That's a team that does not shy away from that kind of stuff. They're going to be in your face from the drop of the puck. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. When it comes to Montreal, for me, though, the biggest offensive weapon and the player I am most concerned about on that team is without question Nick Suzuki. I would say right now in the NHL, I think Nick Suzuki is easily top three hockey IQ. I would go Crosby one, McDavid two, and Suzuki three in that order. So I think just his ability to read the game, make everyone around him better. His two-way game is fantastic. Vision, skating, all impeccable. That's a player the Caps need to get a handle on. They cannot let that guy start to dictate play, start to dictate special teams. That is a nightmare waiting to happen. So you got to shut that shit down.
Yeah, you guys make both great points. Suzuki, scary. Caulfield, scary. Obviously, even line A, that line is going to be scary as well. It really does come down to the blue line. That's the only area that I feel like the Caps have the clear cut advantage when healthy. I know we're dealing with a little bit of dinged up guys on the back end there too. So we'll see how it all shakes out for game one. Um, I I think, Harry, what you touched on, the hitting factor for Montreal, that for me is the number one reason I was a little bit afraid of this matchup for the Caps. I think out of all the teams that qualified for the playoffs in the East, um, I think Montreal is right up there with the teams, like with the maybe the team that can hang with the Caps the most in terms of going body for body and being able to kind of not get bullied by the Caps. You watch what happened in that blowout loss where the Canes beat the doors off the Caps a couple weeks back. Even though we lost that game real bad, we were kind of bullying them physically, and that really got under their skin. The Hurricanes are a bad matchup for the Caps in that regard because they don't have a lot of toughness like that. They don't throw the body around as much. Canes the Habs are very much the opposite of that. And I think, yeah, what I'm trying to say is they can for sure hang. They've got guys that throw the body a lot. They play a similar style of physical hockey that the Capitals have been built around for the last decade plus.
One thing with the Habs, they're streaky. That's the one thing about them where I'm like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to get. I look at Line A and I look at Demidov. If those two guys are playing at their full potential, this is going to be a much closer series than the odds would indicate. And one last thing, and then I'll let you guys wrap it up. Montreal, little bit of Bell Center merchants here. I got a stat here that is fascinating. I didn't realize it was quite this skewed. In Montreal's last 12 games at home, they are 10-0-2. And in their last 12 games on the road, they're 3-5-4. So there's a huge difference of them at home versus them on the road.
Yeah, I mean, it is the hardest building to play in. This is the arena for hockey. We've said it a billion times. If you're the Washington Capitals, you can't lose at home and you got to have at least one there.
You nailed it. We got to win our home games. I will say though, for a team, if you look at it from the Habs perspective, for a team that is not great on the road, I do think there's potential game one for them to have a little bit of a rude awakening. I think that, especially as a younger team in the league, a lot of these guys have never played a playoff game in Washington, D.C. before. You ask around the league, people will say Cap One is one of the tougher atmospheres to play in it come playoff time, which surprises a lot of people because normal regular season game, not necessarily an especially tough building to play in. That place gets the roof blown off of it come playoff time. I mean,
Yeah,
the
once you get all the
decibel
corporate
levels.
stooges out of there.
Yeah, exactly. No more wine on a Tuesday night with your button down under your jersey. We're drinking Michelob's and we're unleashing the fury. So
Exactly.